Good afternoon, everyone. Chris here with Green Bar Trading, also known as Ghost of GBT on Reddit. Checking in once again for your weekly charting and technical analysis video. Looks like it's going to be a short and sweet video today since we only had a few responses to the thread, so we will be able to get through all the requests today. So that's cool. As always, if you did happen to miss the thread and you want something analyzed after I've already posted the video, I do make one of these every single week, so you can either check back next week, or the other thing that you can do is post your idea in the comments section of the YouTube video itself, and I'll respond there with the comment. As I mentioned last week, I did start up a free newsletter which goes out every Sunday and every Wednesday, and that contains some ideas for trades that I myself will be watching for the upcoming days. So if you find these videos useful and you want to dig more into my personal trading style, there's always a link to the newsletter sign up in the description of the video, as well as a link to the blog that I run, which is also completely free. And I just updated that last night with a new post, so you can go check that out. Feel free to drop me a line with any questions on it. One last thing before we get started with the tickers. I also put some information in the video description on the software that I'm using, since I get someone who asks me almost every single week what the software is. So check there if you're wondering about the software. And all that said, let's go ahead and look at some of these stocks. So the first one that we have is Regi Long. R-E-G-I. Don't know why I'm typing long. Okay, so this looks like it came down potentially into a bounce spot off of the 200-day moving average. The only thing that I don't really like on this stock is it's just been going sideways for the last 5 years. So, is there really any upside in this thing? I don't know. It's just been kind of stuck there for the last 5 years. So yeah, we get some runs here, and then we came down and bounced off of this 850 level. We got a little run here. This seems like the type of stock that's going to need some news, to really get it moving. The company is Renewable Energy Group, so let's take a look and see what type of stock it is. So it's an oil and gas company. So the first thing I would want to do is check out USO, which is the United States Oil Fund. I want to see what USO is doing, because that'll give us a guide as to what we can expect in the various oil stocks. And similar to Regi, USO we can see has just been going pretty much sideways since the beginning of the year. January 4th, 2016, we closed at 1098, and October 28th, 2016, we closed at 1101. So, is there really any movement in oil? Not really. It's just sideways. So you're going to see similar action on most of the oil stocks. It does have very high short interest at 26%, and it's also relatively low float. So if it does get some kind of news or some kind of catalyst, sure, it could move. But as of right now, it's probably just going to be stuck bouncing around in this range here. So all that said, would I play this thing? Probably not. I mean, it did have a decent volume day on Friday, but it looks like all of that volume came in the last 10 minutes. So I'm not sure, maybe somebody knows something. Maybe there's some kind of anticipation trade that's going on here with someone buying 100K in the last, 10 minutes. But I don't personally see anything pattern-wise other than maybe a bounce off the 200-day moving average, and you might get, a pop back up to $9. But I mean, the question that you have to ask yourself is, on a stock that trades, 300,000 shares a day, is it really worth it to only make 40 cents on the trade? If you're going to trade something that's only going to move 40 or 50 cents, then you probably want it to be more liquid so you can get more shares of it. So that's what I think about Regi. Not a huge fan, not completely against it. Next one, NTNX Long. So this IPO, actually all these IPOs, have been pretty brutal. This one, I believe the IPO price was $17, $16. So their original IPO price was $16, which means it was already overpriced on the first day, and it went to 46 something. So, now it's just kind of coming back to the norm. It looks like it took out IPO lows, which is probably not a good sign. So what I would want to see is definitely some kind of an indication of strength to see that this thing is actually going to bounce. because there's no indication of strength right now. It's just nonstop red. It's been nonstop red since the second day after the IPO. So that said, what I would be watching for is to see what it does near its original IPO price of $16. Until then, it seems like it wants to just keep drifting down and correct to what it was supposed to open at, which was $16. So, I could be wrong, obviously, but I would not personally long this right now unless I saw a significant indication of strength, like a strong reversal candle with big volume off of this move on Friday. Because right now, it's just, still in downtrend mode. So keep an eye on it. It definitely has the ability to move. So, it can make a big move, but I just don't think that it's quite ready right now. Next up, Visa long. So Visa is not normally a stock that I would personally trade just because it's so thick. And what I mean by thick is that it's got a ton of shares in the float, and so it's very high supply, almost 2 billion shares in the float. And so it takes a ton of volume to really make this thing move a lot. And as we can see, it's pretty much just been, we compare it to the S&P 500, it's pretty much just been mirroring the S&P 500. So this is the S&P 500 daily chart on the bottom, and this is Visa on the top. So, that said, this stock's behavior strongly depends on whatever the S&P 500 does. So, if you think that the S&P 500 is going to go up, then sure, Visa may go up. Personally, I don't see the S&P 500 looking very healthy right now. It actually looks like it wants to break this secondary wedge here. So we broke this one, and now we're consolidating underneath that one and starting to break the secondary one over here. So to me, this does not seem like healthy behavior. So I would be pretty wary about longing something like Visa right now. Once the S&P 500, maybe once the election is over and we kind of get out of this, out of this craziness that we're in right now, stocks like Visa and MasterCard and, Microsoft, Apple, the other like big name companies, they might become better options at that point. But for right now, I would be leaving this alone to the long side. Next up, CVX. Chevron, I believe, right? Yeah. So this one actually was real strong on Friday, and I really liked this on Friday. Very strong run first thing in the morning. We had a big push off of $100, right up to 102.60 or 102.80, and then nonstop all the way up to 105 all day. And so we closed sort of right into this previous resistance level here. So I do like this. It had super strong volume. Looks like they were up on earnings. Net income of $1.3 billion. I'm not sure how that compares to what the estimate was. You could easily find that out actually by going to Street Insider, I believe. Yeah, streetinsider.com, and then click on EPS Insider, and then you can just put in the ticker, and it'll tell you what the estimate was. So the consensus estimate was actually 37 cents per share. Their actual EPS was 68 cents per share, so they destroyed the consensus. Looks like their revenues also beat the consensus at 30 billion versus 29 billion. Not by nearly as much as the EPS, but and then no info on the guidance. You could potentially dig into their quarterly report to find out that information, but it's not super important personally to me. So they definitely beat on earnings. It looks like it was quite a surprise to the market, and so that's probably why we had this big run on Friday. So we had a high of 105.03, and these highs over here were 104.42, 104.34 and a half, and then 105.11, and then the next high above that's going to be 106. So my guess would be that if we can stay in this range that we had developing on Friday, this is going to continue to coil sideways until it reaches an apex point where these two yellow lines become, very close together, probably towards the middle of this range. And you'll see probably right around like 104.50, which actually was, these previous highs. I would guess that right around 104.50 or so, you're going to see in a couple days this thing will take off and go through 105, possibly up to 106. And then if it gets above 106, maybe 107 or 107.50, we could have a run back towards all-time highs. Not all-time highs, but yearly highs anyway. So, yeah, I do like this. Super strong breakout on Friday. Nice volume. It's a super liquid stock. It actually moved really well for a stock that has, I don't know how many shares in the float, but it's probably pretty high. Yeah, 2 billion shares in the float. So, it does take a ton of volume to move this thing, but, it's also an expensive stock, so it has a decent range on it. So you get 50 or 60 million shares. It actually only did like 20 million, not even 20 million on Friday, and it still had, a $5 a share range, which is really nice. So that's something that you can get some movement out of, but it had to have that catalyst. That's why I say, stuff like Visa, it needs a catalyst, right? In this case, it's going to need a catalyst from the S&P 500. Hillary Clinton saying something, or Donald Trump winning the election, or whatever. Something to kick the S&P 500 off. Then Visa will go with it, but it needs that catalyst first. Chevron has the catalyst, which was their earnings beat. And so even though they both have 2 billion shares in the float, they're both pretty expensive stocks. You can see a significant difference in the way Chevron moves versus the way Visa moves. So there you go. I like Chevron, actually. I like this for a continuation at some point next week. I'm not sure if tomorrow, but at some point next week, it should probably break over that 104.50 and go on a little run. Next up, ATVI. Good old ATVI. We've been watching ATVI for a while. Yeah, see, this thing just keeps fading. It's almost starting to look like it just wants to fizzle away. For a while, it looked like it was holding up. We had this nice clean flag that was forming, and then it broke that one, and then it tried to push back up towards it again. It tried to get over 680, couldn't do it, and it's just been sort of slowly fading away. And then it looked like it was almost gonna, this was the, after everyone's shaken out, this was the point where it's gonna finally turn around and squeeze now that nobody's expecting it anymore. But then again, just came right back. So I don't know if this is a long or not. I think it's a long eventually, but it just kind of keeps fizzling away. It is into some pretty significant support here around $6. So maybe if it can reclaim and hold 6 for a few days, then we could get some movement out of it. The other potential spot for it to bounce would be down here in the 550 area where we had this resistance before. So it's in an area where it could potentially bounce, but it needs some sort of an indication, a reversal candle or a big volume spike or maybe another piece of news or something to get it moving. If it breaks underneath this 550 channel, the low of this 550 area here, I would say I'd leave it alone. But I think it does still have a chance. It did have really nice news. I like it as a company. I like the news item on it. But I think it just needs something else that it doesn't quite have right now. So that's what I'm watching for. I'd want to see if it can stay in this channel and then maybe reclaim $6 before I went long on it. Other than that, It's probably just going to be like something that you come back to in a few months and it's back at $7, and then it goes on another run from there. Next up, ARIA. Yes. So Bernie Sanders destroyed this thing. I do think it is in a potential spot where, it could use a relief bounce. Sanders really did a number on this thing, all the way from $13, and it just never stopped. So I do think that, yes, it's in a zone right now where it could bounce, especially since it's sitting right on the 200-day moving average and it's sitting right on its previous trend line. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching this for a bounce over the next few days. The only problem with this stock is just that, if Bernie Sanders opens his mouth one more time, or if Hillary Clinton says anything about biotechs, these things, they just snap at a moment's notice. So it's tough to really predict what some of these people are going to say that could potentially destroy this stock further. But technically speaking, just looking at the chart, it looks like it's ready for a potential bounce. So yes, I agree. I'd want to see a little bit of, tightening here, because it's still kind of sloppy. We don't really have like a clean pattern. We had it did a double bottom thing, and then it broke to new highs, but then it faded all the way back and almost closed on the lows again. So it seems like it still has a little bit of selling pressure left. Once that works itself out and we start to see it coil and tighten up a little bit down here in these lows, then I think you've got something. So it looks good. Next up, ATVI and then CHK. So Activision's kind of like AMD. You just buy the dip. AMD is one of these stocks where for the first couple of months that I was doing these videos, literally every single week, someone would be like, I want to buy AMD long. I want to buy AMD long, AMD long, AMD long. Everyone's obsessed with AMD. And every single week I would say, yeah, it looks good. It's in a nice strong uptrend. It's been in an uptrend for a year. It doesn't show any signs of stopping. Now they've got rumors that they're going to be bought out by, Oracle or whatever the rumor was about on Friday. What was it? I don't know. I forget. Some buyout rumor. But, this is the type of stock that it keeps going up. And it's going to keep going up until something ruins it. Some kind of news item ruins it. Activision's the same way. So anytime it pulls back to this trend line, to me, it's a buy. It's not a huge buy. It's just a buy that you can get. And if you're off by a little bit, you add a little bit more. And if it breaks the trend line and holds underneath it, then you get out. But most of the time, at least for the last year or so, it seems like it's been following that trend line pretty consistently. So I would think that, sure, right now looks like a good time to grab it for a swing back up to 45.50 or so. Also, this has a nice longer-term story. As you can see, huge uptrend over the last several years. We went from $12 all the way up to where we are now, which is like $44, $45. So, this is a big success of a stock. And technically, it looks like a good entry right now. Fundamentally, depends on how long you want to hold it, whether or not this is a good entry. But I like it as a quick 3 or 4 day swing trade back up towards $45. I do like it as that. And last one, CHK long. I don't see anything in CHK right now. It looks like it tried to bounce. This actually looks like a failure to me. It looks like it tried to bounce right here off of its previous trend line, and it just got rejected. And then it tried to reclaim its trend line, and now it's falling away. So this does not look bullish to me until and if it reclaims probably 650, and then really it needs to reclaim $7 to really get moving. So I don't like this right now, maybe off the 200-day moving average or something, but at that point the chart is pretty broken. So I would be watching to see if it can get back up into this channel. If it can, then it might have the ability to survive. But at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any reason to buy this or short it. I just would be watching it. Possibly not even watching it. Stuff like this, I just set an alert on it. When it gets to $7, pop up a little window and say, hey, CHK is at $7, and then decide what to do from there. So let me just refresh this real quick. See if we have any extras. All right. No extras. So looks like that's it for this week. Thanks, as always, for checking in. Feel free to comment if you have any questions. If you do find these videos useful, please share them, subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. And I will see you all next week. Peace.